Russian forces have carried out devastating large-scale attacks across Ukraine on December 23rd, killing at least 3 people, including a 4-year-old child, and wounding dozens more, according to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. The attacks represent a significant escalation in hostilities and come at a particularly critical time, occurring just 2 days after United States-led peace talks concluded in Miami, raising serious questions about Russia's commitment to any diplomatic resolution of the conflict. The most tragic casualty reported was a 4-year-old child in the Zhytomyr region, a heartbreaking reminder of the human cost of this ongoing war that has now stretched into its 3rd year. Zhytomyr region, located in northern Ukraine, has faced repeated attacks throughout the conflict, but the death of such a young child underscores the indiscriminate nature of these strikes. Along with this young victim, 2 other people lost their lives in the coordinated attacks that swept across multiple Ukrainian regions simultaneously, while dozens more sustained injuries of varying severity. What makes these attacks particularly concerning is their strategic targeting of Ukraine's critical energy infrastructure. Russian missiles and drones specifically hit energy facilities across the country, causing widespread disruption to power supplies at a time when winter conditions make electricity absolutely essential for survival. Ukraine's energy ministry was forced to announce emergency power outages in numerous regions, including the capital Kyiv and its surrounding areas. This tactic of targeting civilian energy infrastructure has become a signature strategy of Russian forces, deliberately attempting to make life unbearable for Ukrainian civilians during the harsh winter months when heating and electricity are matters of life and death. The timing of these attacks cannot be overlooked or dismissed as coincidental. Just 48 hours before these strikes, peace talks led by the United States had concluded in Miami, bringing together international stakeholders to discuss potential pathways toward ending the conflict. The fact that Russia launched such a massive assault so soon after these diplomatic discussions suggests either a complete disregard for the peace process or potentially a deliberate signal that Moscow intends to negotiate from a position of military strength. This pattern of escalating military action immediately following or during diplomatic initiatives has been observed repeatedly throughout the conflict, undermining international efforts to find a peaceful resolution. The attacks involved a combination of missiles and drones, showcasing Russia's continued ability to launch complex, multi-layered assaults despite nearly 3 years of intense warfare and significant losses of military equipment. Ukrainian air defense systems worked to intercept incoming threats, but the sheer volume and coordination of the attacks meant that some projectiles reached their targets, causing death, destruction, and massive infrastructure damage. The emergency power outages ordered by Ukraine's energy ministry affected not just Kyiv but extended to multiple other regions, meaning millions of Ukrainians suddenly found themselves without electricity in the middle of winter. For residents of Kyiv and other affected areas, these power cuts mean no heating, no ability to cook hot meals, no refrigeration for food and medicine, and no lighting during the shortest days of the year. Hospitals must rely on backup generators, water pumping stations may fail, and communication networks can be disrupted. This is precisely the outcome Russia seeks, attempting to break Ukrainian morale and force capitulation through the suffering of civilians rather than through military victory on the battlefield. However, throughout nearly 3 years of such attacks, Ukrainian resilience has remained remarkably strong, with citizens adapting to rolling blackouts and finding ways to support each other through the darkest and coldest periods. President Zelensky's confirmation of the casualties and his continued calls for international support highlight Ukraine's ongoing need for advanced air defense systems that can better protect civilian populations and critical infrastructure from these relentless attacks. The international community has provided significant military aid, including Patriot missile systems and other sophisticated air defense equipment. But the scale and frequency of Russian attacks means that Ukraine constantly needs more defensive capabilities to protect its skies and its people. The death of the 4-year-old child in Zhytomyr is likely to reignite international outrage and calls for accountability, with human rights organizations and international bodies documenting such incidents as potential war crimes. Deliberately targeting civilian infrastructure and causing civilian casualties violates international humanitarian law, and each such incident adds to the mounting evidence that may eventually be used in international courts. However, accountability processes move slowly while the suffering continues daily for millions of Ukrainians who remain under threat from Russian missiles and drones. This latest wave of attacks also demonstrates that despite all the discussion about potential peace negotiations, despite the diplomatic efforts in Miami and elsewhere, the reality on the ground remains brutal and unforgiving. While diplomats talk in conference rooms, ordinary Ukrainians, including children, continue to die, families are torn apart, and entire communities struggle to survive without basic necessities like electricity and heating. The gap between diplomatic rhetoric and battlefield reality has never been more apparent than in these 48 hours between peace talks ending and missiles falling. As winter deepens and temperatures continue to drop across Ukraine, the targeting of energy infrastructure becomes even more cruel and potentially more deadly, with the very real risk that people could freeze to death in their homes if power outages are prolonged. Ukrainian repair crews work around the clock to restore damaged power stations and grid infrastructure, but they face an impossible task when new attacks arrive before they can fully repair damage from previous strikes. This is a war of attrition being waged not just against Ukraine's military, but against its entire civilian population, testing the limits of human endurance and international solidarity in equal measure. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.